Hello, this is the Provoked Prawn, and this is a video to compare the Logitech G Pro X Superlight with the Razer Viper Ultimate. These are two lightweight wireless gaming mice with wonderful features and specifications that make them interesting and worth comparing. You will see that there are a number of differences, both at specification level and in the overall design to these two mice. For example, the Razer Viper Ultimate is an ambidextrous mouse, whereas the Logitech Superlight is very much for right-handed gamers. Superlight also has less buttons, with just 5 programmable buttons versus Razer's 8. However, they are interesting in a number of ways, and they're both fantastic mice that should be considered as options. I'm going to start by talking to you about the Razer Viper Ultimate, which I've unboxed and reviewed recently and compared with other mice, so check out those links in the description. This mouse comes with a number of really nice highlights to it. It includes a nice little wireless dongle that allows you to connect to your PC and get a really good wireless connection using Razer's hyperspeed wireless technology. It's also able to be used in wired mode, obviously, with a micro USB HyperFlex cable. Now, this is a wireless mouse that sports up to 70 hours of battery life and a single RGB lighting zone, and it has a really good specification lineup to it that includes a max 20,000 dpi, max speed of 650 IPS, max 50 Gs acceleration, but also beyond that some really nice features in the overall setup of it. For example, it comes with this chroma enabled charging dock, a dock that has a lighting ring around the bottom of it that lights up alongside the mouse and with other Razer peripherals, and allows you to connect to your PC, but also to charge the mouse when it's not in use. As you'll see, it has a slightly sticky base to it, which is pretty nifty because it means that you can put the mouse on that charging base when you're not using it. So when you finish using it, you can just dock it for a charge, leave it there to charge up, and then when you come back to it, it's charged. And that obviously means that you don't have to worry about plugging it in necessarily, as long as you remember to charge it and dock it on a regular basis. But you can take the cable out of the back of this charging dock and plug it in the mouse to charge it if you need to, and then use it in wired mode. Perfectly plausible to be able to do that. What you'll also notice is there's a pass-through USB port on the charging dock where you can plug the dongle in, which means you can get away with using just one connection on your PC and not have to worry about taking up two, one with the dongle and one with the cable. So that's obviously a bonus and a wonderful addition to it. Now, I will note that I didn't have to charge this mouse up much when using it. As I said, it's got up to 70 hours of battery life. There's also some very intelligent battery life saving settings within Razer's Synapse software and the mouse in general, which means that it just keeps going and going and going, and it lasts really well. But if you do need to plug it in, it is convenient, although it is micro USB, which is a frustration. The overall design of it, you'll see, has some very nice slick PTFE feet underneath. And as I said, this is an ambidextrous mouse, which means you get 8 buttons, programmable buttons in a number of different places, including 2 side buttons on either side. Those can be customized independently, and it's also worth noting that you can go into Razer's software and you can add a secondary layer of actions, which is one of the most interesting things about this mouse. And check out the review to find out more on that. But it basically means that you can add a multitude of button presses to it with ease. Now, the Logitech Superlight is obviously designed to be lightweight. This is the lighter of the two mice, coming in at just 63 grams. That compares to 74 grams on the Razer Viper Ultimate. So the Logitech is definitely the lighter of the two. What you'll also see from the underneath is that the Superlight also boasts some massive PTFE areas, so it's very slick and lightweight. It only has 2 side buttons on it, and there are only 5 buttons in total that you can program. However, you can, just like with the Viper Ultimate, customize those buttons within Logitech's G Hub software, the G Shift, which enables you to set secondary actions. When you're pressing and holding one button, you can use a secondary action. The G Pro X Superlight is also a lot more understated. There's no RGB lighting at all on here, which means it can run up to 70 hours, without a charge. There is no charging dock, but it is PowerPlay compatible. Now, Logitech has a PowerPlay mouse mat, which is essentially a mouse mat that allows charge to pass through it, and that means that you can just carry on using it without much fuss. You'll see on the underside of both mice, there's a button to turn it on and off. One thing that's interesting is that there's no DPI button on the G Pro X Superlight, but the Razer has a button underneath that has a DPI switching button or a profile button, and that can obviously be customized to do different things. You'll also note that the Superlight comes with a place to dock your USB dongle as well, but it also has a swappable dock cover. You can swap it out with a cover that's included in the box that has even more PTFE, so you can make it even slicker. So out of the two mice, the Superlight certainly flicks around the desk a lot easier. It's 11 grams lighter and it has a lot more PTFE going on in it. So it basically is very slick and very fast and agile as well. As you'll see later on in this video, when I compare them side by side in a bit more depth, you'll see they're very similar in sort of the overall size and shape of them. So they're very comparable in a number of ways. The specifications on the G Pro X Superlight are also quite similar. It has a higher DPI level going up to 25,600, which is insane. But the max acceleration and IPS are a bit lower at 40 Gs and 400 IPS. And I'll include more information on all that in the specifications so you can compare them on paper. In practice though, they're both very agile mice with really nice designs to them. They both have very tiny dongles, so it's nice to have that little storage dock to put them away. One of the things you'll note with the Superlight is it does come with an adapter, so you can plug it in and have an extension, also have it within reach, so you can unplug it from its extension and plug the power cable into the mouse when you need to. However, it doesn't have a dock for charging, so it certainly doesn't have the convenient charging capabilities of the Viper Ultimate. Now, another thing that you will notice with these comparison shots is that the Viper Ultimate has some very nice textured grips on the side. A very comfortable grip and a very good overall setup. It also has buttons on either side. As I said, 2 side buttons on each side. And a problem that I usually have with this sort of setup is you end up pressing the buttons accidentally when you don't mean to if you're squeezing the mouse. I didn't find that was an issue with this one, but one thing I did find is that they're a bit too recessed, which makes them a bit difficult to feel sometimes in the heat of a frantic battle in an FPS game or something. Just find that they're not terribly easy to get a grip on or to easily press, which is obviously not ideal. However, they can be customized, and there are potentially a lot more buttons to play around with and customize within the software, which gives you a lot more flexibility than the Superlight. And so if you like having a lot of buttons, then the Viper Ultimate might well be the better choice. Also has a very nice textured finish to it on top, kind of similar to like a PBT finish, if you know what that's like from Keyboard Keys. So it's kind of rough and it doesn't slip around on the hand, and it just sits nicely when gaming. Now the Superlight, by comparison, as you can see, doesn't have a slick surface to it either. It is kind of grippy and quite nice. It doesn't feel quite as sort of textured as the Viper Ultimate. But one thing you will have noted from earlier on in the video and a bit later on is that it also comes included with grip tape. So if you feel like it's not grippy enough, you can apply this extra sticky tape to it to then be able to get a better grip on it. Also, the side buttons are definitely better. You can see from the shots that they stick out more, they're easier to feel, they're easier to access. Now, if you like to feel like you've spent money on a mouse and you want to sort of feel the heft of it and the weight of it in your hand, and the build quality, you might feel like the Viper Ultimate is more value for money in that way. The Superlight is obviously very light, they're clues in the name, and so it might feel a bit cheap, but it is actually a very good premium mouse with a really good setup to it, really good specs. It's very agile, it has great battery life, it looks good, and it's really easy to use. I found it actually to be one of my favorites. It's also, I really like the understated nature of it. Usually the lack of RGB lighting can be a bit of a bother with some mice. If you like your mice with RGB lighting, obviously the Viper Ultimate is a better choice, but even that doesn't have very much RGB going on. That's kind of understated as well. And a comparison here side by side shows just how sort of stealthy the Superlight is by comparison. But you will note there's some very similar sort of shape and size to these two. They're very comparable in the overall size of them. The Viper Ultimate obviously has a very Razer-esque design to it with the left and right mouse buttons, with the way they're textured and shaped. And so it fits nicely, it has a sort of ergonomic shape to it, and obviously has the advantage of being ambidextrous. This is also worth talking about the switches, because the Viper Ultimate uses Razer's optical switches, and they are guaranteed up to 70 million clicks, and they're also obviously more accurate than your average switch because it uses an optical light beam in order to measure your clicks, and so can be very accurate. Logitech Superlight uses Omron switches. Apparently they're white ones, and I certainly didn't have a problem with them, but I know a lot of people complain about Logitech switches and say that they suffer with double clicking issues over time. I've not had a problem with my Superlight. I have been using it, as you can see from these shots. It has had quite a bit of use under regular use when I'm not using other mice, and you can see the sort of wear and tear on it. Still holding up well. Also, obviously, you can see the grip tape that I was talking about, which makes it look a bit marred, so I apologize for some of these shots, but you can see what that looks like and how you'd fit that over the sides of the mouse and over the left and right buttons as well. That allows you to hold onto the mouse a lot better when you're using it and allows for a much nicer grip. Now, both of them, as I said earlier in the video, both use micro USB charging cables, which obviously is going to be a downer for some people. I know people will hate that. They want USB-C, and it is a fiddle to plug them in when you need to. But if you have the right setup, you won't need to worry about it, because if you dock the Viper Ultimate regularly, you won't need to plug it in. And if you get a power play mat with the Superlight, you won't need to plug that in either. So they both have sort of after purchase options which could improve them further if battery life and plugging things in is an annoyance. But what you're seeing is two fantastic mice with a number of really nice highlights to them. Slightly different setup. If you want something that's button rich and really flexible and potentially has a lot more buttons in software level, then the Viper Ultimate is for you. But if you want something that's agile, fast, very accurate and understated, and also incredibly lightweight, then the Superlight is a good option. I personally would probably go for the Superlight over the Viper Ultimate. There's nothing wrong with that mouse necessarily. I just prefer the sort of overall style of the Superlight. I also like the large PTFE areas, and I also really like just the overall vibe that it gives off. It's a really nice looking mouse, but they're both comparable in terms of battery life and their capabilities, and they do a really good job of delivering fantastic accuracy when gaming. This has been the Provoked Prawn. Be sure to check out all the information in the description, links to the other videos where I go into a lot more depth on things like the software, and also links to purchase if you're interested in buying. Let me know in the comments if you've got any questions. Thanks for watching. This has been the Provoked Prawn. Hope you found this video useful, interesting, hilarious, or otherwise. Take a look at these other videos that I think you might find interesting as well. And have a look at the description for links and other information you might find useful. Click that join button to see the benefits of being a member of my YouTube channel. And most importantly, have a great life.